Welcome back to Kapowich on Real Estate. My name is Pat Kapowich. This is a program dedicated to risk management in the residential real estate arena. Very pleased to have one of the experts in California on short sales and foreclosures. This program, we will be going over foreclosures, as we call them, and refer to them in California as trustee sales.
Correct.
Duane Gomer is a broker trainer from Southern California. Duane, welcome.
Pleasure.
I've taken your class and it was just outstanding, so I'm glad you could make it here in Silicon Valley for this update. As you know, your business has probably expanded.
Yes, it has.
On this. So let's, first of all, foreclosures, we have, people often talk about mortgages.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a mortgage in California.
No, there are no mortgages in California, just trust deeds. And so,
trust deeds.
Yes, there are trust deeds instead of mortgages in California.
Okay. And can you speak about the trustee sale and how that plays out in California in terms of the mortgagee, the trustee, the trustor, the beneficiary? Can you name the players before we begin?
Sure. There's a trustor, and that would be the person that owns the property. And so there also we'd have a beneficiary, that would be the lender,
right,
and then a trustee who basically holds title during the process of the loan.
Now, why do we use trust deeds in California?
Well, other parts of the country use mortgages, but in California they use trust deeds because of the speed of foreclosure. To foreclose on a mortgage in California would take approximately 2.5 years, and a trustee sale could be consummated in 4 months.
Now, when the licensees are representing buyers and sellers around the foreclosure process, it's fairly complicated in terms of the laws.
Oh, very complicated. A lot of laws.
Now, in terms of the licensee process, in terms of, we had forms here that we had to use recently in California, and they are now longer.
Well, yeah, there were some forms that the California Association of Realtors recommended using, particularly when a real estate agent's dealing with an investor. The biggest problems in foreclosure liability come up when an investor is buying a property that has a notice of default against it.
Okay, and that's where a realtor is representing an investor who does not plan to live in the property, and the occupants are living in the property that's being foreclosed upon.
Yes, the rule is 1 to 4 units, owner occupied, active notice of default against the property, and a buyer who is not going to live in the property.
Okay. Now, in terms of the trust deeds, nonjudicial foreclosures.
That's what they're called officially.
Okay, and that's approximately 4 months.
4 months. It'd be 3 months notice period and an advertising period of 21 days or more.
Okay. What are the sequence of events? There's a notice of default.
Correct.
Can you go over that sequence of events for the viewers?
When a lender decides that the borrower is far enough behind, which is many times 3 or 4 months,
right,
then they notify the trustee. Trustee files a notice of default. Then after a 3-month period, the trustee then has the right and the beneficiary's request to file a trustee sale notice, and that has to be advertised 3 times, 7 days apart, and that's where the 21-day rule comes into effect.
I see. Now, typically that's from the first lender. Let's say if there is more than one loan, would that typically be from the first lender, the largest loan?
Not necessarily. If there's a first, a second on the property, they can start their own actions independently.
Okay. Now, in terms of the no judgment deficiency, can you get into that?
If the lender decides to use the non-judicial California trustee sale, by law they cannot get a judgment deficiency against the borrower.
Okay. So that's the good part of a speedy foreclosure.
Correct.
Okay. Now, non-recourse loans, can you speak about that?
Well, there are different types of loans. There's non-recourse loans and recourse loans. And non-recourse loans are loans that no matter what the lender does, they can't get a judgment deficiency. Those would be loans used to purchase a 1 to 4 unit owner occupied, and any seller carrybacks. They have the protection of being non-recourse loans.
Now, that's the golden rule in California?
Well, the golden rule in California is that the lenders make the rules. They have the money, they make the rules.
Okay. Installment default.
Well, that's, installment default just means the person is behind with some installment. There's also a complete default where maybe the whole loan is due, like on a 3-year trust deed.
Same with the balloon.
A balloon would be a loan that has a tremendously large payment at the end.
Now, in terms of the beneficiary statement declaration, can you speak
Well,
about
when the lender decides that the person is behind, they have to make a statement to the trustee saying, hey, let's start a trustee sale. So the lender notifies the trustee in a declaration and saying that under the penalty of perjury that the person is behind on the loan, and then the trustee starts the notice of default process.
Now, on the notice of default, normally, of course, lenders do not want to foreclose upon the property.
That's rule number 1. The lenders don't want the property back. That's a mantra.
Okay. Now, you have spoken about in your class that the occupant should be speaking to the lenders, not putting their head in the sand.
Correct. They should, I think the rule is communicate, 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 and communicate again.
Okay. Now, in terms of that, in terms of the rear, sometimes what can they do with if there are arrears? They put on the back of the loan. What are several?
Well, if a borrower is behind, they should definitely call the lender. Right now, lenders are very active to do maybe loan modifications where they would change the term. The good thing to ask for is a loan moratorium, which would mean they could not make payments for a few months, or they could try to refinance and get a second, maybe possibly.
Now, there's also where they can put their arrears on the back of the loan.
Possibly.
All right.
But the lenders aren't doing that too much. Normally, the lenders are just modifying the payments at this time. But they are, most lenders now have actually even established loan modification departments.
Wow, is that right?
You know, they don't want the loans back.
Okay. Now, in terms of the notice period, you spoke about the advertising. Where is that advertised? In the local newspapers?
Yes.
Or
The rule is 3 months after the notice of default, then the beneficiary can schedule through the trustee a trustee sale. And it must be advertised 3 times, 7 days apart. Last advertisement 7 days before the sale in a paper of local jurisdiction.
Okay. Now, in terms of, we have the first loan, we have the second loan, we have property taxes, say an IRS lien and a mechanics lien. Let's speak about that. The property taxes are always paid.
Nope.
No.
Property taxes are never paid. They don't have to be paid, but they're never wiped off. They always go forward.
They stay with the property.
Stay with the property.
Okay.
In fact, if somebody even buys at a trustee sale, the property taxes aren't paid at the trustee sale. They stay on the property and go forward, and the new owner is responsible for it.
Mechanics liens.
They're wiped off. If it goes to trustee sale, the mechanics liens are wiped off.
Okay. What about an IRS lien?
An IRS lien is wiped off just like any other liens, but they have one extra provision, and the extra provision that they have is that within 120 days, the IRS can come back and say to the new owner after the trustee sale, we want the property, and pay the new buyer, the bidder, or the lender what they bid at the sale. And then they can take the property back.
Wow.
Very rare. They don't want the properties either.
Okay, let's speak about, let's say the house is worth now $500,000, for instance, and there's a first loan of $400,000 and a second loan of $100,000, and the first loan is foreclosing. The lien holder of the $100,000, the second loan, if they want to foreclose, they have to cure the first payments?
Yes, they would have to cure the first if they wanted to do their own, or the first could keep just going, and before the second could get the property back, the first would be holding their own trustee sale. So they have to cure the first.
Okay, can you elaborate on that in terms of, oftentimes the second lien holder just walks away?
Correct. The second lien holders walk away a lot.
A lot.
A lot, because the value is not in the property. You'll always hear you'll always hear them saying something like, "I don't want to throw good money after bad."
Right.